And this is right near Abraham's Haran. To my mind, this is where these things are happening. And Edessa is the big thing that the Crusaders are after. And all of Syriac Christianity is formed there. There's a big story about Helen being the wife of the king there, and so on in Syriac history. And that's what I have. And there's two others. There's one down here, another Antioch here. And then even Acts says there's an Antioch over here, Antioch in Pisidia, that Paul visits. So there's at least 4 Antiochs. To my mind, nothing was going on in this Antioch. Everything was going on over in this Antioch. Now you say, so what? Well, that would put the Pauline community right in the midst of these things there. That's what's so what. And that, I think, is a very important thing to consider. I don't say I've proved it, I'm just saying that's a very important thing to consider. I mean, the book of Acts doesn't know which Antioch it's talking about. It just says Antioch. So we don't know, it doesn't know, and it doesn't say Antioch on Pisidia, and the area seems to have nothing to do with, and the famine relief is coming from Antioch, Antioch by Caliro, Antioch by Haran, Antioch where these conversions take place. Anyway, there's famine relief coming from over there, the capital of that kingdom, Adiabene, and this other neighboring kingdom, which is where Syriac Christianity developed. Then, right after that, there's well, in the midst of that, there's the famine. Connected to the famine is this Theudas affair. And then at that point, see how when mentioning Theudas, so Theudas has to come around 44 AD or so, 45 AD. And at that point, Josephus wants to tell us, for some reason, then after that, in 48 AD, and all the trouble that's going on, Josephus tells us the 2 sons of Judas the Galilean are executed, right? They're called James and Simon again, the same names as some of the apostles, popular names. And then, because they're executed, then he wants to tell us about Judas the Galilean, with whom he started a lot of it at the time of the famine. All right, now let's go over to the book of Acts. And we'll see how Acts has got this down. Acts 5. I think it is, it's supposed to be a speech when Peter and the others are dragged before the Sanhedrin, and a Pharisee called Gamaliel, who also appears in the Pseudo-Clementines as a sympathizer to the movement, and as it was also the name of Paul's teacher, a teacher of the law, honored by the people, rose up in the Sanhedrin and commanded the apostles to be put out for a short while. Then he said to the members of the Sanhedrin, line 34-35, "Men, Israelites, be careful how you treat these men. For before these days, Theudas rose up." Okay? Theudas rose up. This is in his speech. I love the way they put it. Boasting himself to be a somebody, thinking he was a big shot, okay? To whom a number of men, about 400, were joined. I think it was more than that in Josephus. I don't remember. I don't know if he gives 4,000 or what, but anyway. He was killed, but no specific how he was killed. And all of them were scattered and came to nothing, as many were following after him. After this, one Judas the Galilean rose up in the days of the census and drew away many people after him. He also was destroyed, and all of them were scattered, as many were following him. Okay, there is what we call the anachronism. But why does he make this mistake? Not Gamaliel. There's no tape recorder at this time. People 30, 40 years later didn't know what Gamaliel was saying. Why does he? Because he's been reading his Josephus very quickly, and he notes that Theudas is mentioned, and then right after that, the 2 sons of Judas the Galilean. And then the fact that they were the sons of that Judas the Galilean that taught rebellion at the time of the census of Quirinius. All the writer has done is dropped out the 2 sons of Judas the Galilean and gone from Theudas, who thought he was a big shot, to Judas the Galilean, dropped out that little bit in between. And that's where he gets that mistaken sequence, because Theudas doesn't come before Judas the Galilean. the two sons, he comes before the two sons of Judas the Galilean. In fact, Judas the Galilean is 40 years before they were. You following me? I don't mean to hurt you or upset you. I just want to show you how historical material is garbled, even in beloved documents. I know that these are beloved documents. I don't want to hurt your feelings. But if we're going to do historical material seriously, we got to see what the shortcomings are in documental evidence. You follow me? And if you can get out of this mess chronologically, you'll be my guest. If you don't, I don't expect you to agree with me on this thing. I just want to show you that we just read that from Josephus, and here we are reading this thing, and everyone admits there's an anachronism, but no one understands how it happened. I understand how it happened because I realized the person who did this was reading his Josephus very superficially, like, let me get some, like the way some of you do papers. You know, let's get that. Oh, yeah, all right, this guy, yeah, okay, this guy here, right. And in doing so, he got the chronology out of whack. Now, another thing that relates to what we were reading is this other funny thing. I make a lot of this in my books, as you can well imagine.
That was 536 attacks, right?
Yeah, that's where it was. You'll be able to. You can ponder it over and ponder it over and ponder it over, but you'll never get out of the mess. I've given you the way out, but now that's something people really don't want to entertain. It's too frightening. Now, chapter 11, talking about the foundation of the community in Antioch. I go through this in great detail in my James book. That's why it's 1,000 pages long. You have to go through these things in great detail. Otherwise, you're never going to convince anyone of anything. You have to convince both the mass and the scholars. The scholars can't be able to punch holes in what you're saying, and you have to make it comprehensible to a mass who have very little background knowledge. So that's why people say, why do you write such a long book? Why don't you write a book like Bajan and Lee or Elaine Pagels or something like that, something easy to understand? Yeah, because it isn't easy to understand, that's why. And you need to have detail. You need to have detail for the scholars who are going to beat away at you, and for the average person who doesn't have the background to make these assessments for themselves. That's why everything has to be laid out. Now here we have material in chapter 11.
Chapter 11 of this is
of Acts. Talking about Stephen and certain ones went to Cyprus and Cyrene, 20 and 21, and many turned to the Lord believing. And then the news was heard in the church in Jerusalem, and they sent Barnabas to Antioch. Now there, of course, is which Antioch? I've tried to deal with